So thank you all for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed connecting over lunch, and it looks like we all enjoyed buying half-off plants. So things up for that. So this morning we've been really talking about how technology mediates things in the physical space, and now we're going to be switching over to think about some virtualizations of our surrounding ecology. And to kick us off, we have a graduate student at UCF and the MS of Industrial and Organizational Psychology, and Rayo, who works with Dr. Chelsea Noble, and they're going to be sharing some of their work. Hello. So before we begin, I'm actually going to show you guys a video, and as you're watching the video, I kind of just want you guys to be like, in the moment, feel like you're really in there, and kind of just like take note of how you feel as you're watching it. Is there a way to show that? Oh. About that, I'm actually quite bad at symbology. So would anyone like to share like anything that they thought of when they were watching the video, any feelings that they had? Yeah.
But I was reminded of how slow my plant walks usually are.
It's a very unique reading. Anything else?
I tried using the Merlin, see if I could get the sounds to pick them up.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, the reason why I wanted to kind of show this video is because depending on like how much you know about nature or how you feel about nature and stuff like that, it can have a very different effect. And one of the big things that we're going to be talking about is kind of just trying to incorporate nature in places where we might not be able to really find them and stuff like that. So one of the biggest parts of, I guess.
Where was that video shot at?
So
Wakaiba Springs State Park. So Chris Matson was one who basically asked, can you take us to the place with the best sandhill that is fire maintained? And that was the exact spot on the trail that we placed us.
Yeah, it was great. Actually, the person said that like a lot of the videos that were shot by Dr. Noble, so we have to thank her for that amazing video. But basically, the point of this study, what we really want to focus on is kind of understanding the importance of nature, especially within our field. So with industrial organizational psychology, it gets lost sometimes on whether or not we can incorporate nature into a workplace. It's not something that's often spoken about in like a day-to-day, but we kind of want to focus on this idea that if we can incorporate nature even within just a video on whether or not that can actually help people that may not be able to go outside and look at nature and look at habitats within their own ecosystem. And then as well, a big focus of our study is to kind of help bring awareness to the fact that we are currently at a place where nature theories that we had back then are not going to be as applicable to how it is now, because unfortunately, due to a lot of development, we are not seeing the same habitats that we had back then. In fact, this infographic right now, a lot of land is being developed, and actually, Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission basically predicts that in 2060, like 7 million acres of land will be developed. So, a big part of this study and what we're really trying to push for is the understanding of why nature is important to us, not even just from like a perspective of we're all human, we would want to conserve these areas, but also like from a business perspective, these are having a lot of this, nature is having a lot of impact on how we feel and how we may be able to, recover from stress. So as I mentioned, the purpose of the study is basically, we're just gonna try to investigate, employee work stress recovery through virtual ecosystems. We're gonna be focusing on 6 different habitats as well as the quality of the habitat. So we're trying to see whether or not if something is intact or degraded, whether that has an impact on how we feel, as well as just seeing if there's actually any differences between what type of habitat the employees are viewing, and whether or not there's differences within that as well. So a lot of the research questions that we have basically is like, do employees prefer a particular habitat for nature-based work breaks? Do different habitats in geographical regions actually have any differences that impact the energy of the employee? As well as do degraded and well-natured, like well-managed natural lands convey differential effects on stress recovery. And then the big focus of our study is to basically talk about the generalized unsafety theory of stress. And how this works is that this theory basically states that when we perceive a lack of safety, we are more likely to be stressed and stuff. And then it is within our instincts and our human nature to actually feel safer around nature instead of where we are now, surrounded by buildings. So one of the like big parts of this that I kind of relate to is that I'm from Miami, born and raised. Nature is very hard to find, honestly. Like, it's very hard to find habitats that like are natural and have trees and stuff like that. I grew up surrounded by buildings, and it is something that is not, at least I think, isn't something that we're kind of used to, because we're surrounded by buildings, so we can't really see where we are. The sounds that are like traffic sounds and stuff. I know I hear traffic and I'm instantly stressed because I know I have to drive it and stuff like that. So this theory kind of bases the idea that instinctually as humans, we feel safer in nature. We're able to see around us, we're able to hear around us and be in a place where we understand where we are and stuff like that. So we kind of wanted to base our study on this idea that from a like starting point, humans as we are now with the developed areas that we're in, we are just extremely stressed. And then these are kind of the like pictures and videos that we're gonna show on the participants. So we're gonna have, sand hills, scrub, and swamp. All of these are habitats we can find here in Florida, which is also another part of our study. We want to focus on areas that people can actually go out and take a walk in and be able to like actually enjoy the pictures that they're seeing and stuff like that in real life. And we're also just showing intact versus degraded, just because we're curious to see whether or not there is a difference there, and whether, like someone like me, I've just recently learned a lot about plants due to Dr. Lenoble, so I would not have been able to really say like the difference between an intact and degraded, but now I can actually look and be like, oh, this is actually well maintained. I feel nice now, because usually I'm someone who used to be scared of nature. I'd be like, there's a crocodile somewhere. I know there is. So basically the way that we're gonna do this study is that it's actually broken up into 3 parts. The first study is gonna be a pilot study where we're just looking at individual differences in the perception of nature. So we're gonna focus on this idea in the first study of whether or not there are differences within you that make it so that you're more susceptible to understand how nature can like help you recover. So I, for one, I'm a very anxious person, so if I were to be thrown into a forest, I would immediately be like, I'm gonna get eaten alive by a bear. But now that I'm more informed, I would not think that, and I would be more aware of my surroundings still, because we should be. But I would actually, I think, understand more what nature can do for me and actually be able to kind of like feel where I'm at in the moment and enjoy the aspects of being in nature as opposed to just being scared and stuff. The second study is doing an in-person lab, and basically what we want to do there is we are going to stress our participants out with tasks. We're just going to give them a task. I might be some emails, you know, something that's kind of low, but still kind of stressful. And after that, we're gonna give them a video to watch on one of the habitats and see whether or not that there's a difference there within their energy levels and just overall perception of stress and how they feel at the moment. And then the third study is gonna be a daily diary type of situation where we're gonna get participants who prolific that are actually like full-time employees. And we are gonna be sending them surveys, basically asking like how you feel at the moment, from the morning, the break, and then end of day. So during the break time, they'll actually receive a video as well. And then within that video, they'll be able to say, like on their work day, did this make me feel better? And then as for the implications, so these studies are still being developed, but once we get our results and if our hypotheses are true, this has a very big implication that we can use within just our current state. So I don't know how many of you know, but at UCF, there's a lot of talk about certain areas of land being used for parking lots and stuff like that. So a big part of why we want to push for this study and why we want to push for these type of studies is to kind of ensure that people understand that nature does have benefits for us, that nature helps us. And especially when we're looking from a company's perspective, if we're able to just provide land and have employees be more productive, have less energy, more job satisfaction, more life satisfaction and stuff, that has greater impacts than just like putting another parking lot, you know? So a large part of this is just kind of focusing on this idea that if we are able to show just how important nature is, that we can maybe talk to companies and talk to universities and stuff and tell them to maintain that land and to maintain nature spaces so that people are able to use it. And that is all. Do you guys have any questions or anything? Yes.
Are you familiar with forest bathing?
Pardon?
Are you familiar with forest bathing? I looked into it, it's just going out into nature, but they get prescriptions for it in Japan.
Oh, I will definitely be looking into that because that would be great for me studying.
What types of companies are you gonna reach out to for that study?
So we haven't decided on what type of companies. What we're hoping for is that once we get like the actual study complete and stuff like that, we can publish it. And then I would hope, and we can talk to Dr. Noble about it, our first approach would be towards UCF itself, being like, hey, this study's great. We should maintain this land, please. But I'm not sure if there's specific. Yeah, that's true.
Are you gonna provide an alternative video to nature so that it
Yes.
does not just be, oh, I can tune out, I don't have to worry about my text?
Yes, actually, thank you so much for that. So one of the other videos that we have is an office space. So it's literally just someone walking into the hallway and then a break room and stuff like that. And then within the second study, which is the in-person one, we're gonna be there monitoring that they're actually watching the video and that they're doing the tasks and stuff like that. And then for the third one, we're just hoping that they watch the video. We have it so that they can't click off and like they have to watch the whole thing and stuff, but it's the setting of the studies would be that they are just focused on that one like computer and stuff. Yes.
Are you gonna look at where they come from, where they live, like how you said you live in Miami? Well, I took my friend and her kids for a walk in the woods and they were terrified. And it never occurred to me ever that anyone would be terrified to walk through the woods.
Yes.
And then we started looking at mushrooms and they like that because they're kids, so they like little things. And that changed the whole trip. So people might not relax when they saw that if they grew up in a city or never went to the country.
So actually a big component of the first study is to kind of like talk about that. So we have questions asking the demographics, just like what type of jobs do they have? Do they go outside during their jobs? Where are they from? Do they know that there's nature surrounding them? Do they have nature? Like, can they sit in an office space, turn around and see that there's a tree outside? Or are they just in an enclosed cubicle and stuff like that? And it also talks about, like, for example, I'm in Miami, I think that our culture there is a little bit different because we don't grow up with a lot of nature surrounding us. I, for one, like my mom would always be like, don't walk in there, like you don't know what's there, a snake's gonna kill you. And I'm like, okay, I don't think so, but I trust you and stuff. It's kind of just like knowing where you grew up and like what type of, personality you have. Some people are more open to experiences, some people are more prone to go on an adventure and take a hike and find that to be healing, as other people might not know that and might just be like, well, I'm just gonna sit at home and watch a movie. It'll do the same thing for me. So we are kind of focusing on those individual differences to see really like how much of an impact does that have on like what we perceive to be, you know, the recovery of stress for patients.
I taught a couple of classes at a homeschool group local to me about native gardening, but also about how to like go outside and spend time in nature and make observations in the natural world. And we had a little pond that we would take a 20-minute walk around the pond and identify different species and make observations. The kids were roughly 5th grade age. And the first class, all the kids, and I mean, these are homeschool kids, all the kids are like, I don't like bees. I'm allergic to bees. Are there fire ants out there? I have allergies. And they were like, all of them went into like a panic mode that I was gonna take them outside. And I was like, listen, you guys, like, just have your proper shoes on. I'm gonna be there. I'm not feeding you to rattlesnakes. Like, and by the end of the semester, they all said it was their favorite class. And that they never get to go outside and they suddenly love looking at plants and animals, and all their moms were emailing me, like thanking me for the class. And I really think that like education and like a confident person taking you into this space is so important to like allow them to relax, because the first day was just all anxiety.
Yeah.
So like it was sort of alarming to me because my kids are roughly the same age too, and like my kids don't care, they go outside all the time, barefoot, and like these kids were like, there might be a bee, like, and I'm like, yep, there are bees outside, are you a flower? And like, and they're like, I'm not a flower. And I was like, correct, so just don't worry about the bees, like, and so it was just, I mean, a much smaller scale than you're talking about, but like, I was quite alarmed with my little localized study that I did with them. But it was interesting to see the results were very fast.
Yeah.
I'm curious to be behind.
So that study, I attended UCF long, before you were born, long time ago. A lot of people were here before me. It was called FTU concept. Oh, okay, that's how long ago. But I know that the campus has grown up, but that campus is vastly different than the campus we're on right now. And so I don't know if that type of thing would work well in something like a Stetson-based campus. Because this is very, very much different. And if you have the ability before you leave to walk around Stetson campus or even drive around it, you'll see the amount of flora and fauna, besides the Gillespie out here, the amount of oak trees and cooties and the gardens that surround the campus, that the students mainly live on. Or even live in the housing around it. There's gardens everywhere here in downtown Sanford, or downtown Delaney. So it would be a different opportunity. You would get different results between the people that work on this campus than the people that work on UCF campus.
That's actually kind of like one of the reasons why we wanted to kind of expand the study to make it so that a lot of people are able to take it and stuff, because it is like, for example, at UCF, if some of you may know, we do have I just forgot the name of it. Arboretum. The Arboretum. It's literally right in my head and just went away. So we have the Arboretum, but a lot of people, like a lot of students don't really walk it and stuff like that. A part of it is just kind of raising awareness to our own campus and making sure that like as students, like we take advantage of the Arboretum because it is quite beautiful. And then in places like this where we are more surrounded by nature and students may be more in tune, we can use that within the study too and see whether or not, okay, does that actually make a difference? And if they're able to even use nature and are aware that nature helps them with their wellness and their well-being and stress recovery, that just pushes even more the narrative that we have to ensure that nature is being preserved and whether we have these conservation areas that people can actually enjoy. Because in places like this, they are able to enjoy it, but there might be places, not even just in Florida, that they might not be able to go outside and actually take a look at any of the flora and fauna that they might have native to like that country or state, stuff like that.
I have a question in terms of your methodology. How immersive is this video experience? Are they all watching it together in a room on the screen, or do you have anything that can separate them by putting, headphones on or more?
So the way, the headphones.
Nurse.
Good idea.
Yeah, thank you for the headphones, we will definitely be using them, but, basically.
Thinking stimulation kind of,
Yeah.
what I was thinking too. Yeah, which is a lot more expensive, I imagine, you
We're
know.
working on converting some of the videos into being compatible with just like a simple headset. Part of the issue with some of this stuff is that what we want is this to be very accessible. One of the ultimate goals of the project is to have a video library that anyone can go and watch the videos, learn about the ecosystems. And so I wanted something that would be, like, you could just use your own cell phone and put it in the headset, rather than, a VR system that, like, you would have to really try to convince a company to buy one for all their employees, compared to something that they can just put on, with, like, their own devices. So we're working on converting some of the videos, but right now the setup is supposed to mimic what it would really be like to be at your work desk and just watch a video. So we have this sort of a monitor, and then we are keeping track of other sorts of things. Do they have windows or not? In the in-person lab, one can control all those things, but when we, get to the field sample of people in their own jobs and things like that, we have to kind of keep track of, what other forms of nature might they interact with, their workplace. Because one of the big goals too is this idea with the intact being something that's fire maintained. And so because a lot of wildland urban interface spaces are expanding, there's a lot more difficulty and complexity in conducting prescribed burns. And so we're hoping that if our hypothesis was supported, that would be even more reason why organizations should support conservation efforts that involve prescribed fire, even at the wildland urban interface. So to your original question, our videos are meant to be only as immersive as what would be realistic in a work setting. But part of the goal is also to be able to increase the accessibility to nature spaces for people who are afraid, who can't necessarily go outside because their job is so demanding and they're on the third floor of a hospital, and to even get outside on their work break would take them the entire, work break to get outside and back. So giving them the opportunity to start to learn about these places, to start to feel more comfortable with them. And then, of course, the goal is that you want people to go outside in person and experience them. Yes, it's just.
Do you think there's like, a component of the feeling of ease that can happen when you think you're gonna go to class? Like if you feel like you have the same environment, middle of July, middle of February,
Yes.
the anxiety is gonna be totally different, right?
That is very true. One of the components within that we kind of incorporated within the first study is kind of just their own perception of the environment. So for the first study, the pictures that I showed were the pictures that they're gonna see. So it's whether or not they're able to gauge that, if they feel like they would be comfortable there, if the sound would be something that they'd be scared of, if they can have a sight, line of vision and stuff like that, because it is very, especially here in Florida, personally, especially as I'm dressed right now, if I were to go out into Sand Hill, I would probably, but just that awareness of knowing that there is a habitat and maybe even planning for it, being okay, I'll take a walk when I can, maybe early in the morning when it might not be as hot and stuff like that, just kind of having that awareness and stuff like that is something that we're kind of focusing on. In particular, we are planning on continuing the study throughout a few months, so we will be able to see if there are any differences within just the perception of no, it'd be too hot, I wouldn't want to go. Thank you, guys.